Good morning. Good morning, beautiful friends. It's Carina, and I'm just back from retreat, and I wanted to make this video today about a question that one of you asked in the Q&A in the Painted Yogi. By the way, I do have a Q&A section now, and so if you just scroll down from this post, you'll find a little place that says Ask Carina, and you can ask me a question and I'll answer it. This one I thought was really important because I know a lot of people, including myself and clients I work with and students, get stuck with this one. And it's, what do I do when I feel stuck in blame? How do I move from blame to problem solving, to a more solution-oriented mindset? Because we know when we get caught in blame, it is sort of a trap, and it's not a very fun place to be. So, if you're somebody who is caught in a cycle of blame, or you might know of somebody else who is, then keep watching. This video is for you. So before we dive into the content here, we'll settle in. And before we settle in, it might be useful for you to have a journal or pen and paper, something to write a few things down, because I'm going to be highlighting a few points of a process. So go ahead and do that, and then you can just settle in here. We'll find a comfortable seat. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale, sigh it out your mouth. And again, deep breath in through your nose. And exhale, sigh it out. We'll do one more like that. Deep breath in. And exhale, lets it go. Good. And then for the remainder of this video, for the remainder of this teaching, hi, some people are starting to tune in. Hey, Renee, welcome. For the remainder of this video, I invite you to really be with your breath. But for this video, if you would just really come into your body, feel that you're listening to me through the felt sense of your body. So dropping out of the head. And if you really can, let your awareness sink into your belly. It's as if you could allow your awareness to fill the low belly, space about 2 inches beneath the navel. And as I'm talking, sense that you could also stay aware of that part of your body, so listening from a deeper place within you, so you can receive the most value from this teaching. Blame. We all get stuck in it. I certainly do. And we know it's not very useful because it is this thing that we can get stuck in. Blame tends to be a kind of perpetuating cycle, that if we don't know how to step out of it, that we stay stuck in it. And in the place of blame, there's really no movement forward, and we're often locked in feelings of anger and resentment, and that's not helpful really in the long run for ourselves or for other people. And so as we look at blame and we seek to be kind of free from blame so that we can move on to a more productive and solution-oriented solution, to a problem, what we want to do first is start to take the charge out of blame. So blame is a highly charged state, and it's not actually addressing the root of the problem. And I want to differentiate the difference between blame and shame. So blame is you did something wrong. Shame is I'm wrong. Okay, so I'm with this we're talking about you blaming somebody for having hurt you or harmed you, or in some way, there's a blame towards another person. And this could be for a variety of different things. I mean, we blame for lots of different reasons, right? You might think right now of any area in your life where you might be blaming somebody for low battery mode, for something that they did, seemingly to you. And use that kind of as a meditation as I'm going through this process with you, okay? So the first thing we want to do is blame is a shield. It's a way of pushing off something that we're having a hard time feeling. So we want to get beneath blame so that we can loosen up the charge. First thing we want to do is stop. You might do this right now. Put your hand on your heart, take a deep breath in, and sense that you can feel into your body. And what we want to begin to do is locate the emotions that are happening. We want to locate the root of the blame. So likely the blame is helping to keep you from feeling an emotion, or likely a cluster of emotions that are challenging or uncomfortable. So something happened, you got triggered, someone said something to you, somebody did something in your presence, and you feel triggered. That means you feel scattered, or you feel jumbled up in some way, shape, or form. Like you don't, triggered means you're in some, challenging, difficult emotion. So if you really feel into the emotional tone that's underlying blame, likely the first thing you'll hit is anger. So what these emotions are wanting to do is to be reclaimed, right? This is what I work with a lot in my program, Reclaim Your Peace. Is this emotional reclamation. So begin to own your emotions that are happening through this. So maybe there's blame. Maybe there's anger. And then as you abide and sit with the anger, notice your mind is going to think all kinds of thoughts. Your mind will go off on all kinds of stories about why that person's wrong, why they shouldn't have done what they did, and all of that. Notice the mental stories and drop beneath them and come right back down to the core, to the root, and start to sense the emotions. So there might also be shame. Sometimes when something's happened that's challenging with another person, we might have a hard time owning what our part was in that, and likely you have a part in it. Everything is co-created. So look if you're not subtly, kind of imperceptibly until now, holding that against you. Holding that incident that happened against you. See if there's any ways you're blaming yourself and you might be feeling shame. Because blame is serving to kind of push that feeling away. Shame's a very painful emotion. There might be some sadness. There might be frustration. But this is the step one of the process. Begin to own the feelings that blame is covering over. And really let yourself feel them. And as the thoughts come up about that, just notice the thoughts, but let them go. Because the thoughts, what they're doing, your thoughts, are wanting to hook you back into the blame. Because the thinking mind is trying to protect you from what in the past it's perceived to be annihilating or something that you couldn't handle. But now you're an adult and you can totally handle feelings like anger, maybe shame or sadness. Fear might be there. So dropping the storyline and feeling into the emotion, that's step one. And likely this step alone will take a lot, or at least a significant amount of the charge out. So we're taking the fuel away from the storyline of blame. And now we're getting into business. Now we're moving towards a more productive sort of way to work with this problem. Good. And then along with the emotions that you might be feeling, sense, what am I believing about the situation? It could be, something about that person. That person is selfish, or they always take advantage of me, or I always get taken advantage of, or notice what your story is about what's happened. Notice what beliefs are getting kicked up. About how you're disrespected or how you've been wronged. Just notice what your story is, and you can even begin to write that down too. So step one is the emotions underneath the blame. Step two is the beliefs or the stories that you have about it. And then once you do that again, a little bit more of the charge might be dropped out of it. And this can be challenging, you guys, because what I'm asking you to do is start to own your piece of this dynamic, because it's the only way to freedom. If you feel like life is always happening to you, against you, not always, but in certain situations that you're being come upon, like you're being attacked in some way, shape, or form, and especially if this is sort of a pattern for you, it means that there's a little more mastery that you're wanting to claim within yourself. You actually have much more, we were just speaking at the retreat this weekend about it, you're actually much more empowered than you're believing you are when you're caught in blame. When we start to own our part of a dynamic, then we start to come into greater empowerment, because now we have influence over the things that are happening, as well as our reactions to what's happening in our life. Good. And then as you're doing this process, you want to be as kind and self-compassionate to yourself as possible. So once you've done that process, likely, again, the charge has settled some, and you'll be able to see a solution that hadn't been available to you before. Now, I don't know what that is. It could be a conversation you need to have with that person in a different way than you've had before. Or maybe something else that you need to do to approach this problem from a different perspective. But you can't solve the problem from the same mind state that it began in. And so this process, this, pretty simple 3-step process, it's simple, but it's not easy, I think will help you decode your own inner guidance enough that you'll be able to see the right solution unfold before you. And you'll actually also have a sense of greater self-mastery, because you're beginning to bring something that was previously unconscious about yourself into conscious awareness. Once you do this process, it doesn't mean that blame won't arise again. It likely will. If your mind chooses to pick up the blame story again and you get lost in it, you'll go through this whole cycle of being pissed off, not really even realizing you're mad, and then acting in ways that aren't really in alignment with your integral self, with your true self. And we're always longing to be in alignment with that true self in our everyday life. Like, we want to act from that place. That's when we feel the best in our life. That's when we feel the most satisfied. Everything in life, one of my beliefs that I practice every day is everything in my life is here to serve me. And so when challenging things happen, believe me, I certainly know about blame. I have many examples that I can share with you. Maybe that's another video where I can actually give you examples of how I've worked through this in my life. But for now, I wanted to give you that process, which will help you come into greater alignment with yourself and will actually help you see a solution to a problem that you wouldn't have seen before had you been lost in your shame or blame story, shame or blame cycle or pattern. So just a brief recap. Step 1, which I did in step 1. Well, first, before step 1, the pre-step 1 is just to stop and get quiet, take a breath, invoke some kindness, bring it to yourself as you investigate in this way. And then step 1, name the feelings. First, there's probably anger. Ooh, tired arms. Then there might be shame or sadness, frustration, something else. But really get clear about what you're feeling and let yourself feel it. Step 2, what are you believing? What is the storyline? It's the blame story. And as you start writing down the blame story, likely you'll notice that this is familiar. You'll start to see this pattern has arisen before for you in many other instances. And so it becomes less personal and less about that person. It's never about them. It's always about you. And so that would be step 2. And as you do step 1 and step 2, you'll start to feel the charge decrease quite a bit. Should really start to loosen up. And then a broader perspective, step 3, will be made known to you. And from this place, you'll be able to come up with solutions that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise when your focus and your awareness and your feelings were so tightly tied up in the blame story or in the blame. Yeah. So try this out for yourself. See if you don't feel more empowered. See if you don't feel more at ease and at peace inside your own skin. Again, this is a simple process, but it's not an easy one. Be easy on yourself as you do it. You know, look for any ways that you might have been holding something against yourself. Often we feel shame, and because we feel shame and it's uncomfortable, blame is a little easier to deal with than shame. So just check that out for yourself. Blame isn't easier to deal with actually in the long term, but it's kind of like pushing the snooze button. You know, we feel better momentarily, but in the long run, it just makes things way worse. And yeah, I hope that serves you. And for the person who wrote this, I hope this really helps you as well. And thank you so much for your really thoughtful question. All right, y'all. You know, this might be my last video for a little while because I'm going on retreat and then I'm on a family vacation. I am going to be off the grid, so to speak, for a few weeks. But then I'll be back in late August. And I'll be re-enrolling for my coaching program called Reclaim Your Peace in mid to late September, so stay tuned for that. And that's all for now. Please give me a thumbs up, comment below if you liked this, if this served you, and I'm sending you so much love and many, many blessings on this beautiful Tuesday. Namaste.